My name is R. Crosby Lyles, and this is News from the Can. And it looks like Tesla is up today by 4.54%. So that's good news. If you're if you like Tesla. Full disclosure, I do own a very tiny amount of Tesla stock, and one of the reasons that I'm doing that is it's like an enigma to me, the whole Tesla thing. Tesla just does great. Even when Elon Musk steps on his nuts, he's on a phone call, he's on an interview, and he says, well, the whole people die thing, that, it really didn't cost Tesla anything, because Tesla is fast becoming bigger than Elon Musk. When you create a giant, after a while, I think that it sort of swallows you up. You get to a certain size and your shareholders just won't allow a whole lot of screwing around. And, he's a free spirit. The man's a free spirit, and he says stuff that's really true. It's really true. But he got caught in a bad moment there during the pandemic, and there was really a better answer, but he was probably busy and managing stuff, and the guy works his ass off. I'll tell you, get points for that in my book. And you get the impression, and I don't know if it's true or not, what do I know? That the guy basically carried Tesla to its heights on his shoulders. That's kind of sort of the impression they give you. A lot of his businesses sort of, in a way, are built on hype. That golden science boy, Tony Stark fucking hype that people want to be part of. You want to be part on something that's, that's revolutionary, that's, SpaceX, Tesla, the whole nine, that's sustainable and good for the environment and all that kind of stuff. And what might be happening now or over the past year or two is hype burnout. People just getting burned out on the hype. The other thing too, Elon was born June 28th, 1971, so he's getting ready to turn 50. There's a lot of interesting shit that happens to people when when you turn 50, you quit fucking around in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? And, when you're in your 40s, they say if you're not doing your life's work by the time you're in your 40s, you probably never will. So, and for sure the man's has done his life's work in his 40s. But that's also a time when people, when dudes who make a lot of money and just in general, experiment with a lot of, Caligula type of shit. I mean, to be frank, that's when you're going to do if you're, super wealthy or whatever, in your 40s is when you're going to do all your Caligula shit. And to hear the gossip columnists tell it, which is none of anybody's business, really. But all that to say that, you hit your 50s and you're like, you got kids, and it's like, that's usually when dudes sort of like, people in general sort of like pull back on the stick, and they're like, well, okay, that was interesting, but let's get real. Because you're looking for stuff that's durable. You're starting to see your age. You look in the mirror, you see some, those lines in the mirror. You know what I'm saying? Lines in the mirror, lines on your face, all that kind of shit. And you're like, okay, this is cool and everything, but this isn't durable. All this Caligula shit is it's not durable. So I need something that's, lasting. What's my import? What's my impact? What good am I going to do here? Kind of shit. Which I think has been on Elon's mind for a long time. Because I just think basically that he's a decent human being. As are most people. There ain't no good guys, there ain't no bad guys. There's only you and me, and we may or may not disagree. So, and that's kind of how that is. By the way, I just read I'm reading, because I never read it before, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I never read, it's been around since I was a little kid. And my mother used to talk about it. My mother used to sell insurance, and I was always like, you know what? That's some fucking corporate gulag shit. Just get that away from me. And so I started reading it because, this is life. You just can't excommunicate everyone that you don't like. And it's not efficient to do that. It's not necessarily wise to do that. So you got to learn how to deal with people. And so I happened to see this book on the shelf. I was looking for something else. I was actually looking for a book on Elliott waves, so I can play with the stock market and shit. So I can investigate that and see what's up with that, because that fits in. If you really want to know what's going on, you got to find out. You got to get in with the investors, because they know what's really going on. That's where you really want to get plugged in, hooked up, then see where the bullshit, the rubber meets the road. But anyway, so and I started reading the book, and it's a great book. It talks about like real human experience, and Dale Carnegie. I mean, they sat down with people like Teddy Roosevelt and Franklin Delano Roosevelt and shit, and did interviews with all these luminary people back in the early 20th century to find out, because what they found out is that engineers, their problem was that even though they were great engineers, and specifically he was talking about engineers, that even though they were great engineers, some were more successful than others. And it boiled down to that the engineers that were more successful were just better at their interpersonal relationships. You're dealing with people, because some engineers are just like, they're not people. They're not people. They don't really communicate well. So, and that's what this is, and I recommend it, highly. It's a fabulous book. Dale Carnegie, So Charles Manson read that book. So I don't know what that means, but my brother always tells me this. But it's, basically everybody, it boils down to everybody thinks they're the good guy. Even the bad guys think they're the good guys. So, and not everybody out there is taking a personal inventory and saying, well, maybe I'm the fuck up here. Because if it's not my problem, my personal belief is, if it's not my problem, there is no solution. Your resentments are not really my fucking problem. But anyway, so, and this is what I really, it's like full disclosure. It's I want to clean some shit up here about, I'm looking at these richest people in the world, and I'm like, well, they kind of look like, Gilded Age masters of the universe type of thing. And that may or may not be true, but it comes back to, well, is Elon Musk just able? What you start thinking is, is it just, are super rich people just able to just kick over the entire fucking apple cart and not really harm them? In other words, are they able to just sort of like, because I've been in environments where, if the economy is hard on poor people, then you can have bad management, and you can have a successful company and bad management, because the bad managers come in and they're idiots and they just say, I want that. And then you got all these fucking people who are trying to survive, giving themselves pancreatic cancer to try to fucking figure out, drinking coffee, trying to figure out how to get around the fucking idiot. And then they end up innovating some shit, improvise, adapt, and overcome, that's actually ends up being fucking genius. And so I wonder, well, is that, because you don't know. I mean, who fucking knows? But as it turns out, when you start, like, as we go along here, and it boils down to, I'm looking at the stock price of Tesla, and I'm saying, well, how much of that is, how much of that is hype? How much of that is bullshit? What is this? And Tesla does not seem to be harmed by Elon Musk stepping on his testicles in an interview or whatever. It just does, it's unfazed. And so what's going on? What are the and it's the fundamentals. It's the fundamentals. The fundamentals are that basically Tesla, that Elon Musk has created, and he says it all the time, and I just like, it goes through one ear and out the other. I'm just like, well, he's a brutal taskmaster, and so, just squeezing every drop out of the people that he works for, which may be true or may not, I don't know. But as he says, and I think it's really true, is what he has developed is an environment, a culture of innovation. And because that's where the fucking rubber meets the road. So what Elon, across the companies that he has, SpaceX, Tesla, and everything else, obviously, I mean, just if you just look at it you look at it objectively, he has a nimble organization that is able to innovate and problem solve. And so you see it with the gigapresses, and okay, so they got a gigapress, and now they have to innovate. They have to tinker with the alloys that go through the gigapress. This is for the Model Y and stuff, so that those forms don't warp when they come out of the machine at some point. So that's an innovation, and they had to figure that out. And the Raptor engine, rocket engine, is, and this is over to SpaceX, the Raptor rocket engine is this marvel of engineering. It's a fabulous piece of equipment. It's great. And they are the cutting edge. The only thing that I worry about with Tesla is that, he's Elon opened a plant in China, and as everybody pretty much know, and I've been saying it for years, China, they don't give a fuck about intellectual property rights. Smash mouth politics. That's China. But, I say that very carefully, like, let's not be beating up on people in the street, because it's like, some poor fucking schmuck that was born in Memphis is just because he's got Asian parents, you know what I mean? He's never been to fucking Asia in his life, and you're kicking the shit out of him. It's like, what are you doing? What are these people doing? What are you doing? Just beating up on random Asian people. That's like the dumbest fucking thing in the world. That's retarded, man. Really. Jesus Christ, people. You're beating up on some dude with Filipino and Japanese parents, who was born in Texas or some shit. Doesn't know anything about it, He doesn't know anything about Asia. And you're kicking the shit out of him. It's like, asking him if he speaks English and shit. And you're like, dude, come on, man. That's idiotic. So, I don't want to get into that us versus them thing, because these issues are fluid, and I certainly won't delve into the Wuhan thing, because I don't want to get into the weeds. But I was concerned about that, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. But there's a Tesla plant going up in Russia and Germany, and they have production down to a science where they're able to spit these cars out pretty goddamn quick. And speaking of the fundamentals, I would suggest, I would suggest that Tesla just don't even worry about the global warming thing. And the reason for that is because, it's not don't worry about it. Yeah, it's kind of a selling point, but I wouldn't lean on that because it's really kind of sketchy. So here's the carbon dioxide, right? And this is CAMS Copernicus, a product of the European Space Agency. So yeah, the carbon dioxide's off the chain, but at the same time, this is climatereanalyzer.org, product of the Climate Change Institute of the University of Maine. That white there, that's nominal temperature right now, today. So, this is today and this is today. And these areas where you see the red, well, that's probably precipitation. Might even be snow up there. you know. So, what you really get from carbon dioxide, because it aggregates water vapor and stuff, what you end up with is a lot of rain. You end up with a lot of precipitation, snow, rain, hail, shit like that. What you end up with is shit hitting the fan. Floods, heavy storms. But anyway, their capacity, so they have this production capacity, and the product is great. So it's like, you know, people aren't going to be necessarily driving. They're driving a Tesla because of the status of driving a Tesla, for one thing. But it just so happens that having solved all these problems, like this is, I'm looking right here at this particular part about the battery, how they're putting a little bit of silicon in with the graphite and stuff, and comment that I'd made in my last video, and I haven't put up a video for a while because there's some shit that I really needed to think about what I was doing. And you're not going to make a living. Me personally, I'm not going to make a living on YouTube. It's not, you know, it's not happening. I kind of sort of, I'm not really doing that anyway. So the comment that I made was, well, he's just another rape the earth capitalist, globalist, Gilded Age, you know, master of the universe. But they have changed some of the ingredients in the battery, like they moved away from cobalt. Apparently there's some cobalt in the batteries. You know, and cobalt, you need cobalt to make stainless steel, I believe, which comes from the Congo, you know, Congo is fraught with all kinds of problems, you know. The Congo has been gang raped by the world for 400 years, pretty much. I mean, you know, it started with Belgians, and that was the first stop for Che Guevara, you know, after the Cuban Revolution and shit. And but anyway, so they changed the formulation, and I just have to interpret from that Elon Musk is responsive to the desires of people who care about the environment, who care about sustainability, because that's their rap. They're saying, look, you know, we're trying to do things in a more sustainable way. We're, you know, but you got to get the materials to make these cars, the batteries in particular, because there's a little bit of pressure on those reserves. So they've got their own source for materials in Australia. And in a way, Tesla is only really disruptive to the oil business. It's not really disruptive to the rape the earth paradigm in general, unless they're doing, you know, and I assume they're doing it sustainably. So I imagine that they are, you know, because people are watching, people are paying attention, and that's fair. You know, in full disclosure, I like Elon, you know, and whenever you hear him talk, the man's done his homework. He knows what he's talking about. They don't just arrive at this stuff out the side. They're not just farting these ideas out the side of their ass. They're like doing the work. You know, they're turning the crank, doing the work, doing the research, doing the, you know, and innovating. And it's really, you know, it's really obvious. But what's going to sell the cars and what's selling the cars in China isn't so much the global warming thing, because that's the interpretation of that is still sketchy in some people's minds. It might be a minority of people, but it's still sort of a wedge issue. It's the cleaning up the air is not a wedge issue in Beijing. So the electric cars come into play in places like Mumbai and Beijing and Shanghai, and where the air is so fucking dirty that it will just straight up kill you. And that's the thing, though. The thing about coal is the worst shit in the world that you could possibly burn to make energy. And that's the problem with the solar panels, is that in China they've got these, you know, they're burning coal to make solar panels, which makes no sense. Now if they could, you know, if they could get their energy from like nuclear or something like that, or whatever, I mean, you know, obviously or something else. Natural gas, for God's sake, but coal's the worst goddamn shit in the world you can burn. I mean, if it's clean coal, maybe, but you know, I don't know what their pollution controls are like over there, but they've just polluted the living shit out of China over the last 40 years, 50 years, you know, and I guess they're going to clean it up now. Like I've heard that before, that they're planning on cleaning that up, but That's not the selling point for Tesla and Tesla stock. The selling point is the robotics element, because, and look at the fundamentals. The fundamentals are, the population is going down. The birth numbers are not there yet. China has just issued a 3-child policy because the birth rate is down in most places, other than I think maybe some parts of Africa and maybe South America. But the birth rates are down in a lot of places. And so that means you're going to need robotics. You're going to need robotic transport. You're going to need it. You're going to need artificial intelligence, because you're not going to have necessarily a whole lot of intelligent people to do certain kinds of things. So for delivery and, taxis and all this other kind of shit, even flying airplanes, for years, decades now, all you had to do to land a 747 is push a button that says land, and the artificial intelligence in the plane will land the plane. So, and this is true of the space shuttle, for that matter. But you're going to have it. That's just fundamental. Fundamentally, we're going to have some sustainability, because there are certain things that we can't pollute the planet with. The big things that I'm concerned about, I'm not as concerned about carbon dioxide, as me personally, as I am about sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, that would be coming typically from volcanoes, and nitrogen oxide, which comes from automobiles. And that's another reason to have, but for the individual, what does it mean? What does Tesla mean? Well, Tesla cars fucking haul ass. The performance of a Tesla is fabulous. The fucking thing takes off like a rocket. It's like having a rocket under your ass. That's why people want them. That's why they want a Tesla, because the performance is fabulous. It's unbelievable. And, and you start getting the range up there, and I guess it's Maxwell. There's a couple of companies, Maxwell, they have these partnerships that they have with different companies, Panasonic and shit like that. I mean, if they need to produce something, then he develops a partnership with somebody who already does the thing, and then they innovate it. You know what I mean? And it's genius, really, the way they're doing it. But so there's that. There's the cylindrical batteries. Some people have poo-pooed and stuff like that. But the materials and stuff, and I think they're going to be getting into very shortly here, probably already have gotten into a realm where they're going to have batteries with the energy and the power density that just will totally rival gasoline. Gasoline. That's the reason people we use gasoline, is because of the energy density of gasoline. And as you use it up, you don't have as much weight in the car and all this. So, and batteries sort of maintain their same mass. But when you start getting up there in energy density in a battery, you don't need gasoline anymore. And as gasoline becomes more expensive, it's just going to be natural to use your car. But the whole thing with solar, my beef with solar is that on a grid level is, if we're over reliant on solar and wind, that stuff can be wiped out if there's ever a nuclear war or an asteroid collision or something like that. Whereas if we relied on small nuclear, then you could sort of hunker down in your house and still have electricity while the world is coming to an end around you. You can basically watch the end of the world on your television set with a hot pocket in one hand and a joystick in the other. But the thing about it is that a lot of energy companies out there have already invested heavily in solar, and they've already got solar panels. So the batteries that Tesla has they're just kick ass. The battery systems that they have, what's the energy density, the power density, the switch gear, the software that they have integrated in their switch gear that enables that power to come online really seamlessly. So they're able to store that because in California, for example, they produce more energy from solar than they actually even use. So a lot of that energy ends up going to waste. Well, if you got battery systems, then you can store it. So, the sustainability of batteries is a question. Digging up, unearthing all that nickel and lithium and graphite and whatever replaced cobalt. I guess it's cobalt. They have, and they're using it already. So it works. And when it comes to like cars and trucks, and this is the thing about the F-150, which is a Ford product. I see that Ford stock is up a bit. Using your car to power your house in the event of an emergency. So you plug you charge your vehicle. Well, now with, innovations from Tesla, you can draw power from your car. And with software that they have, the software in your house will passively make money by buying energy on a low ebb when it's cheap and then selling it back, when the rate goes up just from your car. And if there's something that knocks out the grid, some storm or whatever, then you just draw power off your vehicle, and that whole thing makes a lot of sense, while we're figuring out what we want to do about nuclear power, which, nuclear power makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. But, there's already a lot of solar out there. Solar panels, when you're talking about gorilla hail in Texas, gorilla hail will fuck some solar panels up. I mean, that's just all there is to it. In shit hit the fan type of territory, solar panels and windmills and shit like that probably won't stand up so well. But as a stepping stone, if you have a responsive grid where each house has its own storage capacity and its own solar panels and shit, where all these houses, individual houses, are part of the grid and they're buying and selling power, it sort of evens everything out and it lowers the cost of power. And somehow or another that makes sense. Each house becomes part of the grid in a symbiotic kind of sort of way. Instead of just like taking, you're able to. So that's kind of genius. Everybody likes passive income, so that's an interesting idea. Now how long that passive income thing will last, who really knows? Difficulties with China, fluctuations in trade, have ramifications that produce scarcities. Right now we've got scarcities that are totally artificial. Why does gravel? Why do we not have gravel? We should have gravel coming out of our ass, just on a totally different thing. Gravel. I went and got some bags of gravel from Lowe's the other day because I had to put some around this, where the grill is. And we have a little deck. What's up with the gravel? They're doing mountaintop. They had been doing mountaintop for decades. Mountaintop removal in West Virginia. It's like, well, okay, you're doing mountaintop removal. That's like some kind of granite or something. And I mean, you couldn't sell that gravel? I mean, where's all the fucking gravel going? It's an artificial. There's these artificial choke points. Like, okay, lumber. There's plenty of capacity. There's plenty of lumber out there, because there's this thing where you're able to get a subsidy to let your land grow fallow and basically to grow trees instead of crops. And so there's a lot of trees out there. There are a lot of forests out there that have already been. This is something that's been going on for decades now, and so there's plenty of capacity. But it's all running through Georgia Pacific and the processors and stuff like that. And that's where your choke point is. It produces an artificial scarcity just because there's a lot of demand. Everybody's, there's a pandemic, everybody's fixing their house. So what do? Well, put a little bit of a squeeze on the lumber production and drive the price up a little bit and take profit. Same thing with gravel. The federal government, they're talking about doing infrastructure. These big, giant infrastructure plans. Well, ahead of that, they're going to, Put a artificial choke point in gravel production. There's others, like Obamacare. Obamacare came down the line now for Synthroid. Instead of paying $3 out of pocket just for the retail price of the medication, when you go to the drugstore, just for example, Synthroid, you used to pay like $3, $8, something like that for your prescription. Now it's $145. You got to have insurance. Why? Because Coke Industries probably bought the patent, or didn't buy the patent. It's out of patent already. These drugs are out of patent, but they reformulated it some kind of way, some kind of shitty little way, and so now they have a patent on that particular product, and they're able to charge $104. You know what I mean? So, and they're all over the place because of the psychology. Well, you can blame the pandemic. It makes me wonder if that ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal, if that was, planned. Yeah. I wonder. I don't know. It's like, I wonder if they planned that to produce a fucking scarcity, an artificial scarcity, and drive up demand and price. So they, the XL pipeline. Sometimes they're building it and sometimes they're not. Well, when, environmental regulations, under the guise of environmental regulations, and you can produce scarcity, and take profit from those scarcities. Berkshire Hathaway has, a large number of holdings in railroads, Canadian railroads and things like that. And it's like, yeah, that's because they're probably transporting tar sands, or oil from tar sands and things like that would otherwise be coming through a pipeline. So now, did a lot of interesting little games out there to get played. A number of years ago, a large investment company owned warehouses that stored aluminum, so they raised the rent on the aluminum storage, but they also took a position on the aluminum where they were able to buy and sell once they'd changed the rent, and then they were able to take profit on the change in the price of aluminum. So, I can't remember who that was. It was years ago. So, these kind of things happen, but that's what I see. That's the way I see it. A lot of phony scarcities, fake scarcities going on. But anyway, as far as Tesla's concerned, it's their fundamentals. Their profit, they're able to, they're nimble and innovative, and they make a good product. They basically deliver the goods. That's what he does. That's what Tesla does. It delivers the goods. They've got their cars are not cheesy, crappy cars, that. Because they used to have electric cars back in the 70s, and they had automotive batteries. The cars were made out of fiberglass, and they were cheesy, and they were just sort of covered in plastic, and they didn't go very fast, and they just weren't very compelling. Well, the Tesla is a hot rod. It's a compelling car that's got some range on it, and the better they get at making batteries, the more people are going to like them. Oh, I brought it up briefly for a second ago, and then I forgot to finish the thought on this. The cylindrical batteries is well, that's kind of crazy in a way, and I've heard people bitch about them. Oh, they should make a pouch battery, blah, blah, blah. Well, the thing about the cylindrical battery is that because you have it wrapped in a jelly roll kind of thing, is that the heat travels by conduction more efficiently than anything else. And how I found out about this is I was in engineering school. I went and got a hamburger at the Wrights Union over here at the University of Florida. And you get a double cheeseburger from Wendy's, and the fucking thing would be flaming hot. There's no way I could eat it. I got to get to class. You know what I mean? I only got a few minutes to eat. And this hamburger is too fucking hot to eat. Burger, fries, and a soda. And it'd be maybe in January or something like that, and I would be outside, and I would just take the hamburger, and in the wrap, and set it on the pavement. Not on the pavement, but on the concrete, like they got a short wall there where you can kind of sit down and eat, and I would set it on that concrete, and that hamburger would be at edible temperature in a really short amount of time, like maybe a minute or less, because the heat from the hamburger, and this is the heat, would transfer down, and this is into a cement type, brick type of material, and it would go down, it would conduct down into the material and cool that hamburger right down. So by the same token, that cylindrical battery, because it's concentrically wrapped material, the heat doesn't really convect out that well, but it transfers through conduction up and down. The heat is not being captured. You don't have a feedback between the other batteries because the heat is moving vertically away from the battery pack. The battery pack is placed horizontally, and the heat is transferring up and down into the structural material of the car, where it can be wicked away from, with the fan or with the motion of the car or whatever. It can be dispensed with, and in other words, it's efficiently carried away from the battery pack. So it works. This thing where they get the tabless battery, that's pretty genius. It'll be interesting to see what issues they may or may not have with that. Probably won't have too many issues. I can't think of any offhand, but it'll be interesting to see what they do, and all the answers that they come up with. Basically, that's what they do. That's the fundamentals. The fundamentals is they hit a fucking snag and they innovate around it. That's what we've seen over and over again, because that's what they do. It's a nimble, innovative organization, and that's their fundamentals. That's the culture that they have, and they're in a place, they're in a position now where they can take over the world. So more power to them. Now, what sort of damage is that doing? I guess they're getting all their stuff from mines in Australia, because Australia is just loaded with. You wonder where all the Sky News right-wing crapola is coming from Australia, what that's all about. Well, that's because they've got minerals. It's sort of like the mineral industry, mineral extraction industry against the world kind of thing. And that's what they have in Australia. That's their thing. Minerals, coal. They got an ass pile of coal in Australia, and they want to sell it. It's like $70 billion a year or some shit like that. It's like a vast coal seam that they have. So, but anyway, and it's Australia. Sort of a fascinating culture they have there. It's almost like, I don't know. It's weird. It's they got their own private Idaho. It's okay. It's all right. It's all good. But anyway, that's about it. It's a rambling thing that I did, and basically it's about, basically it's sort of to, I don't know if I want to, it's kind of clean it up maybe, because basically in my last video I'm like, well, you're just trading one rape the earth paradigm for another, but how else are you going to do it? Because the economy of the world runs on the politics of the entire world revolves around mineral extraction and cheap labor, and that's where it's at right there. That's the fight. That's where the fight is. Inexpensive mineral extraction and cheap labor. That's what it's all about. Everything, the entire experience, the entire political experience in the world. So you gotta like nod. Just you have to anything that's really that disruptive is going to get shelved anyway. So the fact that Elon Musk has been able to disrupt as much as he has is kind of miraculous, and it's good. Oh, and the other thing in closing, as far as battery technology and stuff like that, what I would say is you got to know that there is technology that's old as the hills as far as batteries and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I never knew what an iron flow battery was until recently, and iron flow batteries were invented in the 80s, you know, flow batteries. So there's, you know, there are battery technologies out there. There are technologies out there that have been suppressed, that are fabulous, that work great, that they've just been suppressed. Because there, you know, like there are organizations, well, I don't want to say organizations, but there's businesses that if you're in a particular kind of business, you don't really necessarily want a innovation to you know, you don't want to be innovated out of your money stream. So they do things to block innovation. And they, meaning people who have certain types of businesses, you know, that's their source of income is a certain kind of commodity or whatever they produce. They don't want an innovation knocking them out of business, so they buy up or they somehow suppress innovations that come along. So there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff out there that's been done already, that's been done and is long out of patent. The patent has expired on it a long time ago, and it works and it's great, and you know, why not do it? The Krauss device is one of them, you know. So and I think that's about it. There was something else. Doesn't matter, it's not important. So that's what I would say about that, you know. And you know, fuck it. You got to do something. If you have cars that are running on batteries and they're not spewing out nitrogen dioxide, you know, and you can see what's up with that. This, you know, that's a photochemical reaction that produces nitrogen oxides. So this is the sun here, this part in the middle, and this right here, that's persistent. That means it's being produced, and you know. Big cities, nitrogen dioxide produces acid rain. Acid rain is the real planet killer, whether it's from sulfur or nitrogen or whatever. That's the real planet killer. So battery powered cars are going to mitigate that. So yay, cool. And that's it. Hope that made sense to somebody. You know, I don't know. I've heard people say that Tesla stock might be worth $5,000, you know, in a couple of years or some shit like that. I don't know. That sounds like hype. I'm kind of hype averse at this point. So, but you know, I think that the fundamentals are there. It's just all there is to it. You know, and Elon is getting me. He's going to be 50 this month, and that means he's probably gonna, you know, that's at the point where you sort of solidify your game plan, your life game plan, and start really forming your legacy. And that's it. Cheers. My name's R. Crosby Lyles. This has been News from the Can, and thanks for watching. See you.